So we have now about 20 minutes for the Q&A session. I'd like you to be really focused, ask one question only, and then we'll have another round of questions. Please.
Hi, this question is for Bal Murli, and you raised a very important point
and
about...
say who you are first.
I'm Bhavani Baswala. I'm a second-year anthropology graduate student from Brown. And yeah, so this is my question. So you raised a very important point about critiquing the democracy credential. The initial mandate, when the Constitution was given, the initial mandate was, like, we have come out of colonialism, let's have equality, redistribution, recognition. That was the message of Ambedkar, and we came out with a very strong Constitution. And there was the spirit of, these were the spirit of the Constitution. What happened later? I think Anand mentioned that the Dalits moved to the Marxist, nationalist movement, and they declared the Constitution as a bourgeois document. Other strand is that in the realm of affirmative reservation, the discourse of merit have become the new operative term for caste discrimination of the order of purity and pollution. I'm talking from an anthropological point of view. So that's one thing. So, and another, just quickly, the judiciary, what happens to the democratization of the judiciary? If I was to do an anthropology of Indian judiciary, it's a new site of, we talk about in anthropological search, change and continuity in caste. So it's like, it's the continuity of the caste. There's no representation. There's like, okay, yeah. So, all right. So I'll just quickly run to my question. Can I argue with this claim that the judiciary is like, has a very exclusionary character and all this thing, that the Indian Constitution now has become, to use a Bourdieuian term, a political fetish? Yeah.
Oli, even though there is one Dalit Chief Minister now, a Chief Justice, sorry.
Definitely, and we had the, well...
Can you speak into the mic, please? Yeah,
okay. Definitely, I would not call the Constitution as a fetish in the sense that it definitely seems to be part of social processes that also institute in one way or another different interpretations of it. In that sense, I would still regard the Constitution as a very important document. I'm not sure if there's anything more I can say on this, but I want the other panelists to have a chance to...
They have other questions, don't worry.
Oh, okay.
Ramaya.
Yeah, myself Ramaya, I'm a Fulbright visiting scholar in Colombia. I appreciate all the three presentations, excellent presentation. More specific question to Sivagami, that the data indicates that in the social science institutions, over 90% of the faculties are from Brahmins, and in the natural science, 98% faculty are from the Brahmins. And in bureaucracy, because of compulsive reservations, the situation has improved, but large majority of the even IAS positions are vacant, which means India since independence have been governed, controlled by the merit class, Brahmins. But still they are not able to implement most of this, I'm concluding it, not able to complete the implementation of policy. What does it reflect? Does it reflect they don't want to implement or they are inefficient? This is the question. Yeah.
I think I should consider it both, because I don't only restrict the policy making with the bureaucracy. The policy making basically depends on the information they get from the bureaucracy. With the collection of information, the process begins. Also, for example, a road to be constructed, they keep in view first whether we should buy cement from India Cements, strike a deal, either it's a tar road or a cement road. That is the first priority of the politicians. So it is a combination of inefficiency and also apathy, I should say.
One question there and then, okay, fine.
It's just in addition to Sivagami's presentation. Like, when the government failed to show any interest in giving lands to the Dalit, but they are showing very hyperactive this thing in confiscating whatever meager lands of Dalits in the name of special economic zones and for the facilitating the industrial corridors of the world powers or companies. This is the major problem now. whatever landed Dalits they are facing, they are just throwing some amount of money and then, confiscating the lands and, with no justice at all. And this is a problem which we need to focus into, which is a very contemporary issue.
Because basically,
Yeah. I think it's more a comment than a question. Okay, and we'll return to the left.
Yes, this is a comment directed mostly at Anand. I really appreciated how you exploded a great number of myths. One thing, though, that you said is that Kir Venmani was the first atrocity and that atrocities and violent atrocities have been building over time. That's a very common narrative. We don't actually have the historical comparative data to say that for sure, but incidentally we do know that, that in Tamil Nadu in the late 19th century, when Dalits did effectively challenge the powers that be, their charities were also burned, they were also murdered, there was also mass-scale violence. So the only thing we can say for certain is that when there's been an effective challenge, and in the 1990s in Tamil Nadu it's been linked to electoral challenges, there's been violence. It's not correct to say that previously it was just sort of opportunistic beating and symbolic humiliation, as opposed to now it's violence. The violence is always there. It's linked not to a change in time, but to cases of where people actually assert themselves. So it's just a comment, not a question.
Do you agree? Yeah. Sanjay on the left.
No, there would not be any sort of distinction between this, but if you broadly look at the data, and the case histories of these atrocities, you would find that there is a marked sort of qualitative differentiation that could be made from, say, 70s onward. Before 70s, the violence has been part of Dalit life, so there is no comment required on that. But largely speaking, the post-70s, and even there is a marker post-90s, the neoliberal phase, you can see the distinction between the way the atrocities were perpetrated and the way they happen now.
But do you see the impact of the so-called more strict implementation of the SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Act in UP? Do you see the impact of this so-called stricter implementation of the act?
Oh yeah, rather Mayawati had issued a circular that crime against Dalit would not be automatically registered under the Atrocity Act unless approved by the collector. So that kind of thing has happened in UP. Even despite that, if you see the statistics, the numbers under the Atrocity Act also have increased during the recent years. Not to distinguish Mayawati's period, but even recent years.
There was one question on the, yes, two questions on the right, and then we'll return to the left.
Yeah, I'm Mohan from Tamil Nadu, actually, basically. But I'm not, I'm a Tamil speaking guy, basically. But I'm not allowed to claim myself as a Tamil. I mean, just I'm coming to Balamurli, his excellent paper, Ethnization of, or Culturalization of Caste. This is how the Shudra community, which is becoming a Shudra supremacy community. They are ruling the people in the name, in the name of ethnic group, a Tamil ethnic or a Dravidian ethnic, like that. So Ambedkar was not allowed to call himself as a Maratha, speaking Marathi. And Sivagami, she was in a higher position in government, and she's a Tamil speaking guy, but always she was called as Dalit writer, not Tamil writer. And in an interview with a Brahmin lady also, she said, "Why do you call me a Dalit woman? I'm a writer."
Do you have a question to ask?
Pardon. So it's like that. Yeah, my question is, it's not a question actually, it's a comment on his paper.
I think we get it.
And by this, the Shudras are becoming the Kumpradar rulers and using the ethnicity as a big tool to rule the country.
Thank you. But please stick to the rule. You'll have many comments to do, I'm sure. I have plenty. Ask the questions. One question, sir? A quick one. There are plenty in the queue.
Yogeshwar Ade, Ambedkar Center for Justice and Peace. They are wonderful, all these three papers. The issue of atrocity is getting from bad to worse, as Anand Teltumde brought it out.
So the question is?
And the question is, 1 second, sir. Please allow me.
We have already...
I traveled 3 hours to come here. I need the time. I traveled 3 hours in the morning. Thank you.
Also need the time.
Professor Jeffrey Lott, I have a lot of respect for you. But I have to have my time. The atrocities are increasing, and that needs to be dealt with. There is no clear-cut solution that Government of India has did. I want this committee to address it. Number 2, the sister has brought excellent points that half of the world's child labor is sitting in India. Half of the world's child labor is sitting in India. 16% of the population with 50% of the labor, that needs to be addressed, and the economic the development is not taking place. So the separate electorate and separate settlements and separate economic development are the only solutions which I feel I want the committee to address very thoroughly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the left there are questions also. Sanjay Ruparelia from the New School. I save time by introducing yourself.
It's a very simple question. It's for the panel as a whole. If you could relate your analyses to Dalit party politics, what impact, if any, has that had? Because it seems to be the elephant in the room, so to speak.
I would cede my time to Anand.
Anand, party politics and atrocities?
Dalit politics also is inflicted by neoliberal, this market ethos. You know, earlier times that just after Ambedkar, it got co-opted by the ruling class parties, and now there is no independent kind of Dalit party politics in existence in India. After this globalization, etc., the market ethos even entered the politics, and it became now the sort of very, very blatant kinds of trade that happens in the name of Dalit voters. So there is nothing to name as sort of Dalit party politics. It just tells the or confirms this some ruling party agenda in every corner of the country.
Yet I'd like to share with you a piece of information I shared with Anand yesterday based on the CSDS post-election survey, where you saw that the BSP in Uttar Pradesh got not only 85% of the Jatavs, but also 64% of the Dusards and 61% of the other Dalits, which means that there may be a Dalit party in the making there, cutting across different jatis. And interestingly, and this is the phrase you mentioned, Anand, caste cut into classes, but classes now are cutting into caste, because even the Jatavs are not voting en masse for the BSP when they are rich. The richer you are, the more congress-oriented you are. So this is probably a turning point, but I don't want to ask questions. Smita.
I wanted to bring up the other elephant in the room that many of you have actually either written about or been activists around, which is Hindu nationalism and the forming of that into a cultural phenomenon, and simultaneously the recruitment of Dalits and tribals as foot soldiers for the many atrocities that have been meted out by particularly militant Hindu nationalist groups. How does that play into the conversation that we're having today?
Thank you, Smita. I think, broadly speaking, there are at least two arguments that have legitimized caste for contemporary times. One is a neo-Hindutva argument, according to which it is not that castes are about naturally given orders, because Hindutvadis too have suffered liberalism in some way, but they have definitely continued to make the claim that caste is not about oppression. So that is one line of argument. There's another line of argument, neoliberal argument, which many of us have heard, and that is actually that castes are very useful for capitalism, and India's most entrepreneurial, not just trading but even manufacturing, castes are successful in a credit crunch capitalism, or a capitalism where institutions of credit are not very well developed. So these are two broad things. I I would like to add a third one, which is the multicultural argument that castes are good for multicultural democracy, and this ties in very neatly with the Hindutva that is now reorganizing Hinduism along the lines of main contradiction being Dalit versus non-Dalit, and caste as culture, and let's all celebrate all our castes with pride, forgetting that caste pride leads to atrocities.
Thank you. Yes, 2 more questions.
Yes.
We'll be done.
Yes, can I ask? Yes. This is to Bal Murli. I just have this problem, especially about seeing caste as cultural communities or culturalization of caste. I think castes are not culturalizing, castes are rather politicizing. That's very heart of the politics of democracy in India, is that castes are becoming political communities rather than cultural communities. If they are really becoming cultural communities, that goes against the caste. Okay, the celebration of Dalit life definitely endangers the Brahmanical life. So that's not the way. And another thing I noticed that, very colonial anthropological way you try to play the life of this potter. I didn't understand the meaning. How are you different from a colonial anthropologist in 20th century, and what meaning you wanted to give? I didn't understand the meaning you wanted to convey by, if a potter sitting in this audience, he would have had serious objections with the way in which you brought out his life.
Thank you. Murli, and then we'll take 3 last questions.
Ramaya, thank you very much for the comments, but let me try and, without being defensive, clarify something. I think that when Dalit castes are talking about culture, it's very different from every other caste Hindu talking about culture, which is why I reserve the term culturalization for caste Hindus. Dalit castes, especially those who are extremely politicized in an anti-caste way, draw upon non-caste based, intentionally, consciously non-caste based things, and even Ambedkar talks about ethnicization. I think the term ethnicization is proper for that. When I use the term culturalization, it is actually a depoliticization. So I'm talking against this thing called culturalization, which I believe is happening. So for example, instead of saying, and this comes to the second question, instead of saying that we don't marry those other folks because we actually find them in some way as a different status, especially lower status. We don't mind marrying the higher status. They say that we don't have a Khan Peen Rehen Sen, a lifestyle gelling. All right? In that sense, they are definitely talking about us having a different culture from them. Now, as far as my experience goes, and I talked with a number of potters, they definitely engaged in very humorous ways with me, and maybe I come off as a colonial anthropologist, and I am using that in deep irony there. Maybe it's so deep and so subtle that it just falls flat. Obviously it has. And I will definitely keep that in mind. Thank you.
1 second.
Thank you. Yes, Shiva.
Yeah. Regarding Bal Murli's presentation, I have also some apprehension because you are transgressing from discrimination to integration. From discrimination, you are crossing borders and entering integration. What we are worried basically is the exploitative nature between communities. Okay, I should be working in your farm and you are creating atrocity and torturing me. That is a different issue. But we are not marrying each other. That is a separate issue. Because that is the only thing. Because of course it is this is discrimination. Do away with the discrimination is the first and preliminary step, and which I think we need to pay more attention than on culturalization of other castes and how it is going to have an effect. Because the exploitative nature is first, taken away from it. Then comes the culturalization, I feel.
Thank you. We'll take 3 questions and then they'll respond. We'll take all the questions together, please.
Hi, I'm Divya. I'm a grad student here in the history department, and I have a quick question about what I hope is the third elephant in the room, which is the left. And from all your presentations, especially Ms. Shivakami's, I was wondering if, given the shift in the past 15 years, clearly towards a very neoliberal frame, especially with the BJP and the Congress, and the BSP seems to be sitting out on that one. So do you think that then the questions that you raise and the concerns of Dalits can then only be addressed by a Marxist, Ambedkarite approach, or do you think the two cannot be reconciled?
It's not on the Dalit side, of course, there is nothing could be done. They would be too willing to take any allies. But the Marxists, with the limited example I can quote in Tamil Nadu, they have never been talking about land. I cannot even quote one incident where they would be asking for land. All the best that they could do for Tamil Nadu is asking for 1 rupee more wages or 50 paise more wages for the landless agricultural laborers. Or at worst, they can stage demonstrations against American Pepsi Cola and all that. So never they staged any demonstration for asking for land for the poor, leaving alone Dalits. So I don't think, right now they have anything for India or particularly Tamil Nadu, because I come from Tamil Nadu. So I don't think there is anything. But if they have something, probably we'll join hands.
As a matter of fact, it is only communists who actually had taken land struggle. It's at the end that Baba Saheb Ambedkar realized that whatever he had done, it was only for the urban Dalits, and he asked his followers to take up land struggle, and in Marathwada, in his lifetime, the struggle had happened, and he was very pleased about that. Later on, Dada Saheb Gaikwad, another follower of Ambedkar, had taken up the same clue and created a first countrywide land struggle in Dalit history. Now also, the communist movement is in disarray. The parliamentary communists are absolutely bankrupt, but there is a hope in the radical politics in communism in form of Naxalites. As I indicated in my thing, the atrocities, the supplement of Dalit strain came from the Naxalites. In Chundur, the incident had happened, and it was decided that we would eliminate the landlord. The landlord was eliminated by PWG cadres, and it stands that in the surrounding of Chundur, there has not been any atrocity like that. So is the Gaya Jahanabad region of Bihar, where Dalits started retaliating, and there has not been any incident of that kind appearing in Jahanabad. So probably left in the Dalit emancipation schema cannot be neglected just like that.
To supplement what he has said, 2 lines, it was Ambedkar who had organized in the year 1938 a major agitation for calling all the landless laborers for the abolition of Koti system, that is abolition of Zamindari system, 1938. When he called for the meeting, 20,000 people attended, whereas Gandhi had called for a meeting in 1936, calling all the Zamindars not to pay tax to the British. So it was attended by 15,000 only. Another thing is, he was the one who organized the largest ever land agitation in Hyderabad in the year 1948. 1 lakh people he had mobilized on those days without telephone or transport facilities. He toured about 1 year the whole of Andhra Pradesh to mobilize that crowd.
Thank you. Only the last word and we'll be done.
Just a quick thing. I think to try and address what you're saying, Sivagami, and also go back to what Ramaya is saying. Sorry, Chinaya. Ramaya is there. Ramaya is there.